You're listening to 15 Minutes, where we feature community leaders sharing what the rest of us should know but likely don't. Hi, Chad Franzen here, one of the hosts of Share Your Voice, where we talk with top-notch law firms and lawyers about what it takes to grow a successful law practice. This episode is brought to you by Gladiator Law Marketing, delivering tailor-made services to help you accomplish your objectives and maximize your growth potential. To have a successful marketing campaign and make sure you're getting the best ROI, your firm needs to have a better website and better content. Gladiator Law Marketing uses artificial intelligence, machine learning, and decades of experience to outperform the competition. To learn more, go to gladiatorlawmarketing.com, where you can schedule a free marketing consultation. Mark Roderick is an attorney at Lex Nova Law, where he leads the firm's crowdfunding and fintech practice. He also writes a widely read crowdfunding blog and is a featured speaker at crowdfunding and fintech events across the country. Mark has always represented entrepreneurs and their businesses and brings a deep, multi-layered legal background to his clients. Mark, thanks for joining me today. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you for having me.
Hey, tell me, how did you get started in the legal industry?
Well, I went to law school. I went to the University of Virginia Law School way back when, and like many of my classmates, went to work for a very large law firm in Philadelphia. Mine happened to be, but that was certainly. I don't think I went to law school thinking I would go to a big law firm, but there's this enormous pressure actually when you're in law school, or at least at certain law schools. I went to, as I say, UVA, which is one of them, that just pushes you in that direction. Peer pressure, money, the big firms are where the money is. So I started out at a very, very large law firm being a tax lawyer way back when.
Okay.
Is that a good answer?
Yeah, that's a very good answer.
That's how I started.
Okay. When did you know? What made you decide you wanted to go to law school? How and when did you know you wanted to become an attorney?
Actually, so in college, I was an English major and a math minor. I always loved math. And when I graduated, I went to London, to the University of London, and got a master's degree in math, which completely satiated my longing for math. I mean, math is beautiful, elegant, fascinating, but when you're a mathematician, when you're doing pure math, what mathematicians do basically is sit in a room and think. And, it's a world it's fascinating, but it's isolated, and you start to become very strange. Like I would find myself walking down a street in London, sort of having no idea where I was, thinking about math proofs and these abstract things. And I'm sort of strange enough as it is. And so I decided that's not what I wanted to do. For my future, I wanted to do something that involves, people and the real world as opposed to abstractions. And so law seemed like a pretty cool thing to do. And I applied to law school and got in, and that was how I started.
I wouldn't think, maybe I'm wrong, are most attorneys skilled at math? I would think that those are, when you're good at math, you'd go in a certain direction. When you're good at maybe communication and other things like that, you'd go toward law. Am I wrong about that?
Yeah, I would say it's about the same as for the population generally. I wouldn't say lawyers tend to be more skilled in math. I mean, most lawyers are not skilled in math, but most of the general population is not skilled in math, and some are. One of my partners at Lex Nova, actually, a guy named Bill Skinner, is very, very good mathematically. Has whatever defect in the brain makes you good at math. So it's about for some reason most people don't like math and aren't good at math. It's hard for people like me to understand. but that's reality both inside and outside the legal profession.
Have you found that your abilities regarding math have helped you in the legal profession?
Immeasurably. Yeah, absolutely.
What ways?
The I mean, I think of it, the ability to be analytical, you know, math is perfect. Um, and sort of mathematicians would understand what I mean by that. There is in a mathematical proof, there's no ambiguity and there's no seeing it from both sides. There is a proof and it leads to a conclusion. And you sort of get all your ducks in a row and put together all the abstract thoughts or facts that are all abstract, and they lead inexorably in a certain direction when you put them together in a mathematical proof. So being able to think really, really clearly and crisply about things, I I mean, I don't know how I would do without that, but then other people do, I guess. But yeah, it's super. I think math is a super helpful background for lawyers.
So you went to law school and then you got a job at a big firm as a tax attorney. What were the early days of your career like?
Um, they were intellectually interesting. I was working on, interesting projects and had a lot of responsibility right up front. So it was fun that way, the early days of my career. But I am not a big firm person. I think a lot of people at big firms are not big firm persons. They just stay there for various reasons and just become more and more unhappy. But I was not a big firm person. I'm not a bureaucratic person. I'm not a political person, figuring out who's important in the firm and posing up to them. I just was not into that at all. And, at a big firm, you have a lot of good characters and a lot of bad characters. And I didn't like being around the bad characters. So I figured out pretty early in some difficult, very, very difficult experiences that big firm life was not for me. And and so I left and have never regretted that decision at all. Went to a terrific small firm that offered all the benefits of big firms, interesting deals, super smart people, without the bad side. And even fellow lawyers at smaller firms know you can make a lot more money at smaller firms also. So yeah, my experiences professionally at a big firm were good. Some really interesting things. I learned a lot. Um, but on the other hand, the largeness itself just didn't suit me.
So is that smaller firm that you transitioned to? Is that where you are now, Lex Nova Law?
It not quite. I went to a firm where I was for decades. But I joined, I think, as the sixth lawyer, and we built it up into about 80 lawyers. But then a few years ago, what happened is you start with a terrific small firm and you keep adding people, and well, before you know it, you don't have a small firm anymore, and you start to have, you know, lots of more rules, a lot more bureaucracy, and you're adding lawyers for a head count and for economic reasons, and they're not necessarily the people that you would have wanted to practice with if you were a six lawyer firm. So a few years ago, a group of my partners and I split off, and that has been an absolutely wonderful thing. That working environment, your working environment, is so important that it's good financially, but psychologically, to be able to work with people who share your values, your sense of what's important, what's not important, your sense of integrity. It's so important. And I think, lawyers are generally conservative, not politically, but they, in general, I think lawyers don't like change.
Hmm.
And um, there's so many lawyers, I think, who feel trapped in their situation, and they shouldn't feel trapped. They should just change their situation. But yeah, I am delighted to have formed this new firm. We wish we had done it five years before, but there you go. That's probably true with everything.
So when you say sharing kind of the same values really helps the work environment, what kind of values do you feel like are important for you and for you to kind of be around on a day-to-day basis?
Well, one is intellectual honesty. Um, and it's easy to say, to talk about, but in practice it's too rare. So the ability to talk about things truthfully, to have a discussion, just as an example, what are things lawyers talk about internally? They talk about money, for example. Um, and most of the time you get in a firm, people start talking about money. Each person is advocating a position that he or she believes will earn him or her more money. They won't discuss it conceptually, honestly. They're always looking at the corner of their eye of doing a calculation. Well, how much is this going to make me? But in my firm, for example, and in my old firm a while ago, we have discussions about money where people advocate for positions that will harm them financially because it's the right thing to do. Trying to be right, making sure you're right without regard to the impact on yourself is great if you can get a group of people willing to do that, or how you treat staff, or how you treat vendors, whatever, and have that conversation, trying to achieve the right answer as opposed to advocating. Lawyers advocate, everyone advocates, but to put down take off your advocate hat and talk about things truthfully is very rare. And wow, what a fantastic thing when it happens.
So how did you find all these people, given how rare that seems to be?
Well, as I say, when I joined this, what was then a very small firm, um, it was such a group of people, and it was led by a fellow named Rick Blaster, who is a dear, dear friend and mentor to me, and unfortunately died. Oh, it must have been 8 or 9 years ago now. But when he was relatively young, in his late 60s, he was fierce. He was a complicated guy, but he was fiercely, fiercely honest. He always needed to be right. And I don't mean he needed you to accept his view of the world, even though it was wrong, although there was certainly an element of that. But he wanted to always be right and would immediately concede an argument. I remember early on when I joined the firm, I was a young associate, and he and I got into a heated argument about something, and it was kind of math related. It was how you do an equation to figure out a tax outcome or something. And he was saying one thing that was wrong, and I was saying something that was right. And there was someone else there sort of trying to mediate. Well, I can see, both positions. And then Rick understood what I was saying, and he said, no, there aren't two positions. Mark's right, and I'm wrong. And for the senior partner of a firm to do that, that's an incredible model. of how you should act in almost everything in life, and certainly how you should act with your partners. So that's where it came from. It came from Rick Lesser.
Very
Um,
nice.
and and actually, when he died, it was really when he died that that firm, kind of having lost that figurehead, he was more or less a figurehead by the time he passed away. But we lost his moral influence, and that's kind of when that firm started to change for the worse. So yeah, it's super important.
Hmm. Hey, tell me about your crowdfunding blog. How did you get into that? Why did you get into that? And just tell me a little bit more about it.
Well, in my career, after I joined the small firm, at a smaller firm in general, you don't, I was no longer going to be just a tax lawyer. I was going to be a tax and corporate lawyer, just because that's the clientele. And I began representing entrepreneurs and their businesses um, in all kinds of stuff, mergers and acquisitions and employment issues, everything. And one of the things entrepreneurs do a lot is try to raise capital because that's what we call capitalism, the lifeblood of businesses. So I did a lot of, private placement kind of securities work, helping entrepreneurs raise capital, and became as frustrated as everyone else in that market about how limited it was and so forth. So all that is by way of answering your question. The Jobs Act came on the horizon in 2012, and that's the law that created or allowed crowdfunding. And having been living in this world feeling like you have both hands tied behind your back, I said to myself and my partners at the time, wow, this is incredible. This is going to transform, this being crowdfunding, these new rules transform the entire capital formation industry. Because what it really is, it's just the internet coming to the capital formation industry. And when the internet comes to industries, whether it's retail or dating or anything else, it does the same things in every industry. It connects buyers and sellers with and bypasses intermediaries. And this is going to be super cool and fun and good for the economy. So then my partners basically said, yeah, sure. But I was so convinced of it. I thought it was so exciting. And people were starting to write, or probably already were writing blogs by that time. So I said, I'm going to write a blog about crowdfunding, put myself on the map, teach the world about it. And it just so happened that I seem to have a skill at writing blogs. You know, I you learned as you get older that everyone is flawed or no one is perfect or people are complicated. I have some skills. I lack some skills. There's no doubt about it. But it just so happened I realized I had a skill writing blogs. Um, and in this new industry, I was the only one writing a blog and putting out really good content. And what do you know? you know, People do Google searches and find it and start reading it. And so it has been fabulous. The blog has been terrific. I mean, it basically, along with speaking engagements, it built my practice and continues to. And at the same time, it's not a marketing blog, if you've ever looked at it. It's
Hmm.
not talking about me and how great I am at all. It's a substance blog. It addresses legal issues, business issues, but in a very plain English, non-legalese way that people find engaging. So I am educating the public every day in my blog, which I love. I love that idea, and it's good for business. So
And
that's my blog. It's been
you don't run out of topics.
um, you never run out of topics because, particularly as the industry keeps growing, the topics I choose for my blog, I don't just think of them out of thin air. People call me from all over the world all the time. I talk with people from everywhere. I've spoken with thousands of people. And of course, I have a bunch of, ongoing clients. And all these people ask me questions. And so if I get asked the same question, 4 times, that's a blog post. That's how I pick them. My clients pick them for me.
So I have one more question for you, but tell me how people can find your blog and also find out more information about Lex Nova Law.
And they find my blog by typing in crowdfundingattorney.com. Boom, there's my blog. Or just Mark Roderick gets it. It's funny because I've had more than one person tell me, I started to look for a crowdfunding attorney. And I couldn't stop getting your name coming up. So it's more like, how do you not find me? It's easy to find me. Crowdfunding, Mark Roderick, whatever, all kinds of things. And our firm has a website, Lex Nova Law, but all, the content, the substantive content, learning about crowdfunding is on the blog.
Okay, great. Hey, last question for you. What does a kind of a typical day look like for you? Like, few of your daily rituals that you find most important?
Well, probably my most important, I have a couple daily rituals that keep me sane. In the morning, I sit out on the porch with my dog and cat and drink tea and do meditation, with a meditation app. It's wonderful. I don't know whether you've ever tried it, but it is fantastic. It just can make a huge difference. And then exercise. At the end of the day, I need to exercise. And I think my day is pretty much like all other knowledge workers these days. Zoom calls, writing, emails, way too many emails. Someone please solve the inbox monster problem we all have of just being overwhelmed with emails. So yeah, I could describe it negatively, but like everyone else, I spend my day fighting my inbox.
All right. Well, it sounds great. Hey, Mark, it's been a very interesting conversation, and it's been great to talk to you. I really appreciate your time today. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Nice to be here.
So long, everybody. Thanks for listening to 15 Minutes. Be sure to subscribe, and we'll see you next time.